Hello, dear students, and welcome to today's class. I'm sure you did amazing in your English paper and have fared well in your exam. In this video, we shall continue with the next poem in your syllabus, Father Returning Home, poem 2.5 in your textbook, Father Returning Home. My dear students, when I say father returning home, you might get this picture because we live here in Mumbai or in Vasai or in any part here. We see that traveling by train is the main part of our life, especially for the people who travel to other areas for work in Mumbai. So, this is a story of a father who journeys back home from a tiring day at work. It is written by the poet Dilip Chitri. Dilip Chitri was born in 1938 and he passed away in 2009. He was a critic, painter, translator, and filmmaker. He has won various awards, and among them, he has won the Sahitya Akademi Award for the poetry as well as for his known translation work, says Tuka, popular abhangs, that is, spiritual poems by Saint Tukaram. He had started translation of literary works of saints in Marathi at the age of 16. He was the pillar of Little Magazine movement in Marathi. His various poems deal with themes like exile, alienation, self disintegration, and death. These are the major themes of his work. Dilip Chitre was a celebrated bilingual poet and translator with a remarkable work in Marathi and English. Bilingual, as in he writes in two languages, that is Marathi and English. His versatile creativity extends to painting, filmmaking, and his notable contribution as a magazine columnist. This poem is taken from his book, that is, Traveling in a Cage, which was written by him. It draws a portrait of a suburban commuters. Suburban means we all know we stay here in Vasai, Nalasopara, Naigaon, Bhayandar, Virar. These are all suburbs. Okay, so it portrays or it gives us a picture of a commuter, a traveler in the suburban trains and who lives in the suburban area. Okay, the famous poem by the poet is Father Returning Home. So, Father Returning Home is one of his famous poems and it is an autobiographical poem. My dear students, when we hear these words, Father Returning Home, this is the picture that comes to our mind. You know, at the end of the day, when dad comes home, how eagerly we wait for his arrival and how happy we are to see him back home. But in this poem, the poet focuses on these things, that is, estrangement, alienation, isolation, old age in modern society, and generation gap. So, this is not a happy situation here that is described by the poet. We can relate to this situation, my dear students, because it depicts the dull, monotonous, exhausting, and equally pitiable daily routine of a father. How this father who struggles day in and day out in order to meet ends for his family. He works hard, he goes out, he works hard, and he comes back at the end of the day tired, exhausted, and various feelings are expressed in this poem. It describes a forced alienation at home. Nobody is there to talk to him, to share with him, which is reflected to the stale food that he eats, lack of sharing that takes place in his family. Nobody is there to share with him. His children refuse to share his joys and sorrows or their joys and sorrows with the hardworking father, who, as a result, is forced to retire into solitude. He goes into loneliness. He does not feel wanted anymore in the family. So, this very painful loneliness is a symbol of man's isolation from the materialistic man made world. My dear students, we have heard about so many things that our parents, especially our fathers, they are the ones who make our dreams come true. They help us, they are like the bridge which takes us from darkness to our future. They want us to get that education which they never got. They want us to get those clothes, those facilities which they never got. And we have heard about this famous quote saying, some superheroes don't have capes, they are called dads. And yes, for my dear students, we know that for every child, their dad is their superhero because they have seen him work hard. They have seen him how a true leader should be, okay, as he is the leader of the family, how he takes up every responsibility for every member in the family, and this is what makes him a hero. And we have seen this in the lives of our dads as well. Okay, so this poem is very much relatable. We can relate with it. It's very emotional because we have been gifted with a dad, okay, a father who is having all these qualities. And my dear students, as we see this poem, as we continue this poem, understanding what the poet's trying to tell, I'm sure you can link with the every feeling which the poet has brought out in the poem. So this poem, my dear students, has two stanzas which are 12 lines each. Okay, so it's 24 lines poem. It's a free verse poem. We know what is a free verse poem. It doesn't have any rhyme scheme as such. And this poem is taken from the book that is Traveling in a Cage, like I mentioned before. It's his first English book of poems. And this poem portrays, of course, the life of a suburban commuter, the daily traveler. And it's an autobiographical poem, like I told you before, where he shows the loneliness, the world weariness of an old man who is a father in the modern society. It's a true account of poet's own father here. Okay, so that is why I told you it's an autobiographical poem, because he has written his own experience about how he has seen his father struggle for in order that he can provide everything for his family, as he was the only working person, or he was the only person who was earning for the entire family. So he talks about his own father, that is Purushottam Chitre, in this poem, and his life in 1957 also. Okay, so it's like quite it's quite old poem, and so we have to understand the various facts or the points that the poet is covering here. So the poet is expressive of the poet's feelings for his father at a later stage. He realizes later on that how neglected and uncared the father was in the family, and even after being the only person who was earning for the family, yet he was neglected and uncared, whereas he was actually supposed to be looked after because he was the one who was earning bread for the family. So it is an account of an old man who does the hard work for his family, but he has a very monotonous life. Okay, he does everything so that he could give all the happy things to his family, his children, his wife, maybe his parents, and whoever is in the family. But in return, what he gets is just this lonely life where there is nobody to take care of him, even to talk to him or to understand his feelings. So let us begin. Father returning home. It's a free verse. Okay, now here, my dear students, the poet also has used enjambment. Now, what is enjambment? That is, you will see that throughout the poem, the lines of the poem, they just run from one to the next line without using any kind of punctuation. So usually at the end of every line in a poem, you have a comma or a full stop. But here you will see that there are no punctuations as such at the end of the line, each line. Okay, in the stanzas. It is a dramatic monologue where the poem, which is in the form of a speech, like a narrative, like somebody is telling it to someone else. Okay, it's like this is imagined person in which the speaker is speaking to that particular person. So this is the form of the poem. Now let us understand. My father travels on the late evening train, standing among silent commuters in the yellow light. Suburbs slide past his unseeing eyes. His shirts and pants are soggy, and his black raincoat stained with mud, and his bag stuffed with books is falling apart. His eyes, dimmed by age, fade homeward through the humid monsoon night. Now I can see him getting off the train like a word dropped from a long sentence. He hurries across the length of the grey platform, crosses the railway line, enters the lane. His chappals are sticky with mud, but he hurries onward. So let us understand the first stanza, the first 12 lines of the poem, my dear students. Here, the poet begins, by describing the life of this particular father at the end of the day when he is returning back tired from his work, and he, after being tired throughout the day working hard in the place that he works in, after working over there, he has to travel back home in this crowded train. We all are very much familiar with the trains that we have, in which lakhs of people travel every day. So, like the other people, this father and the poet also is traveling back home late in the evening, okay, at the end of the day, and he's standing among the silent commuters in the yellow light. Now we're talking about the period which was like 40 to 50 years or more before. Okay, so during this time, this was the condition wherein even then the trains were crowded, and people used to just stand there, because then mobiles and internet and all of these services were not available. Even today when they are available, we find that people are all engrossed in their own cell phones, and they are either busy listening to music or watching something online, or maybe watching a movie or something like that, and there is hardly any conversation that takes place. So here also this father travels back home in this crowded train. He's standing, obviously, because it is crowded, so he has no place, and he's standing among the silent commuters. So everybody else is silent, and this father here also is all tired, and he's standing there as he looks at the yellow light, which is which is seen outside the train. Suburbs slide past his unseeing eyes. Now here, my dear students, we have to let's bring to light this beautiful scene that we can see from the railway, or from the trains. As the train passes by, we can see the beautiful green fields, the sunset, or the sunrise, or whichever time you're traveling by. The scene is completely different, and it's really very beautiful when you've had a good day, when you have had a nice experience at your workplace. You are so happy, your mood is enjoyable, and so you just enjoy looking at the beautiful scenery outside. But here the poet is saying that the suburbs slide past his unseeing eyes. Means those things are the same, everything is the same, the beautiful fields are the same, the trees are the same, maybe there is a pond over there that he passes, everything is the same. But he's so tired that his eyes are not even interested at what he is looking at. He is just standing staring at all the things that are passing by. He's not interested really, or he's not rather enjoying anything as such, because he's so tired. His shirt and pants are soggy, and his black raincoat stained with mud. So here the poet is describing the clothes of the father, and he describes it saying that his shirt and his pant is all soggy, because he's talking about one monsoon evening that the father is returning back from. So during monsoon season, we know that because of the rains and all, our clothes get really soggy, they get wet. And in this kind of condition, in this condition, his black raincoat that he's wearing, that raincoat also is all stained with mud. Now, when does this happen? We'll come back to this later on. But let's just continue, and we see he describes his father as this person who is wearing very unclean clothes and all of these things. And along with him, he has this bag which is stuffed with books, and it is falling apart. Now, my dear students, also we have to understand that we are talking of this period where mobile phones were not at all, used as much as they are used today. Okay, and all of these new IT generation was not there during that time. So people used to either carry newspapers or books in order to, pass their time in while they were traveling. So this father also was such who was, not interested in talking to people around. He did not have maybe a lot of friends for him. And so just, he would pass his time alone, either by reading books. And so he had so many books in his bag that his bag was almost falling apart. Okay, so such was this the life of this father, who was very lonely, who was he was an introvert person. He was not interested in talking to people, making friends, or no, neither was he, happy, or there was nothing exciting in his life as such. Okay, so his eyes were dimmed by age. Now here we see that the poet then now focuses onto the real features of his father, who has been doing this hard work for so many years, and now he sees his father closely, and he describes and he realizes that his eyes have become really weak because of the age. Okay, and he is, fading homewards through the humid monsoon night. So he's walking back home through the monsoon night, and he now the poet can see him getting off the train. Okay, so now the station has come where the poet's father has to get down from the train, and he can, see his father getting off the train. And this particular incident he describes as, he uses a very metaphorical term over here. He uses a metaphor over here by saying, like a word dropped from a long sentence. So his father is being compared. The poet compares his father to this word, this small word in a sentence, which, if removed, will not make much difference to the sentence, will not change the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so for him, or he rather describes his father as this particular person who gets off the train, and his getting off the train doesn't make a lot of difference in the atmosphere in the train. Like, nobody even notices that somebody has got off the train, and nobody realizes that he was even present over there. So here he focuses on his father as an unimportant person, a person who is not at all important, or who is not cared for, who is not looked after, and his existence is just for the sake of being there. Okay, it does not really matter. So he uses, that kind of term here. He does not say it directly, but he uses this metaphor, and he tells that this word, the father, is like that particular small word which is dropped from a sentence, that sentence as in the crowd in the train. And his father is just a small word, okay, which was which got off from the train, but nobody really realized. Okay, so then he talks further, saying he hurries across the length of the grey platform. So now here, grey platform, he says it is grey due to cement. Now we are very much aware about the railway platforms, and it's all grey. And here, grey suggests old age. Okay, here, why is he using this word grey? Is because he wants to depict the old age of his father, the dullness in his life, the sadness of this father's life, the loneliness of this father's life. And color gray is not very exciting, it's not very joyful. Okay, so he uses this particular color over here to denote the dullness of his father's life. And even then he knows that, nobody is really waiting for him to come back home, yet he hurries across the length of the great platform. He hurries across the platform only to go home, because he has nowhere else to go. There is nowhere, no friends that he wants to meet. There is no the social gathering that he wants to go to. The only place that he knows is his workplace and his home. That's the only route that he has every day. So he gets off the train, he crosses the railway line, and then he enters this particular lane. Okay, now while he is walking in the lane, the poet further describes him by saying that his chappals are sticky with mud. Yeah, we understand this, my dear students. During rainy season, no matter what kind of footwear you're wearing, your footwear will be all covered with mud. Okay, it will be covered with mud, it will be dirty, it will be soggy. And so here also the father is wearing chappals during the rainy season, so that only shows that he does not care a lot about himself. Okay, whether his chappals are soiled, they are all dirty, they have become sticky, or because of these chappals there are these stains that are being thrown on his jacket, and which is again stained with all the mud. Still he's not at all worried about all of these things. He just wants to wear those footwear just for the sake of it. And wearing those footwear, he hurries onward, so he does not care about how his outlook is, how what are the conditions that he is walking through. He just wants to go home. Okay, so this is the portrayal of a father, my dear students, who does not care about. We have these demands that during the rainy season we want this footwear, during winter season we want that footwear, during summer season we have another footwear. But fathers do not do all of these things. They have just this maybe one pair of footwear or two pairs of footwear, and these are the footwear that he will be using for years together, just because he wants to save on spending that extra money for himself, rather than he wants to save it for you, okay, for his child, so that he may get what he desires for. Okay, so we have experienced this, and we can see these things happening in front of our eyes, with our fathers doing the same thing just so that we get the best of the things. So the poet then continues in the second stanza. Home again I see him drinking weak tea, eating a stale chapati, reading a book. He goes into the toilet to contemplate man's estrangement from a man made world. Coming out, he trembles at the sink, the cold water running over his brown hands. A few droplets cling to the graying hair on his wrists. His sullen children have often refused to share jokes and secrets with him. He will now go to sleep, listening to the static on the radio, dreaming of his ancestors and grandchildren, thinking of nomads entering a subcontinent through a narrow pass. Now, this is the second stanza, my dear students, and now the poet's father has reached home. So he begins the stanza saying, "Home again." Like every day he's just come back home, and it's nothing new for them to see their father coming at the end of the day home all tired. Okay, so I see him drinking weak tea. Okay, weak tea as in a normal tea, maybe it's cold and it doesn't have any much flavor or something like that, but still he's so tired, and he does not give himself much importance. So he grabs this cup of tea which is already there, and he eats one stale chapati. Okay, so here we see that father is not at all given importance, even though, like I told you, he is the sole member of the family who earns the bread for the family members, and yet he does not receive any kind of any kind of special treatment by, maybe the children are there waiting for him at the door, and they welcome their father, they gave him a glass of water, and then gave him some nice tea and some good biscuits, or maybe some fresh chapati which is freshly made, like just from the pan or something like that. Nothing of those things happen over here. This father here, that the poet talks about, his own father, this father, he just comes home tired, and he just does not get any kind of attention. He himself goes and takes this cup of tea and the stale chapatis which are lying over there, and he eats those things. And then we see he reads a book. Now, again, at home, he's reading a book, which means that people at home are not even, noticing that father has come back from home, and we have to go there and talk to him, ask him about how his day was and all of these things. But nobody cares to even look at him as he's home. And so he just, moves away after having his tea and that stale chapati. He goes into a corner, takes his book, and starts reading it. After some time, he goes into the toilet to contemplate. Now, here, my dear students, we see an important line being given by the poet. And he says that the father, after having his some snack, he goes into the toilet to contemplate. Now, what does this denote? That this particular place, like, he notices that even if he's sitting in the house, nobody is looking at him. Nobody cares how he is, what was his day like, or nothing like that. Nobody wants to talk to him. So rather than just sitting there and being unnoticed, he just goes into the washroom, goes into the toilet, and he locks himself over there. And he starts contemplating. What's the meaning of contemplating? Contemplating means thinking deeply. Now, this must have happened, I guess, with some of you, or all of you, or either of you. So we have this some days in our life, or some moments in our life, when we are so disturbed, we just feel like breaking down, we just feel like crying, we just feel like shouting out loud, and we just go and lock ourselves in the washroom, because that is the particular place where nobody is looking at us. We are alone, and we can express ourselves the way we want. We can think about all of the things that have been happening in our life. So here also the poet is showing that how troubled, how disturbed this father was, that he had to go and get into this washroom, into this toilet, and start thinking deeply about how his life has been. Man's estrangement from a man-made world. What is the meaning of estrangement? His alienation. How he has been separated from the man-made world. The man-made world is filled with all these kind of people, his family members, who are busy in their own lives, not bothered about what is happening with the father, and what kind of life he is living, what are his troubles, what are his sorrows, what are his joys. Nobody is worried about those things. Okay, they are only worried about them getting whatever they want. Okay, so here he starts thinking about all of these things, that how his family has moved away from him, and they are busy in their own lives. Coming out, he trembles at the sink. Now here, the poet is using the word trembles. That is, he's shivering, because he's going through so many different thoughts in his mind, and also again because of the old age. Okay, he's not able to cope with the situation, and he's trembling as he's standing near the sink. And when he's washing his hand, the cold water which is running over his brown hands. Now, here again, my dear students, the poet has used the words brown hands. Why is he using such words? Because he wants to draw our attention towards this hands of the father, which have become brown and hard and all rough, just because he has been working hard with those hands. He has been toiling day in and day out. My dear students, when you look at your own hands, and when you look at the hands of your father, you can easily make out a difference, okay, in the hands. And your hands are quite soft and quite smooth, whereas your father's hand are very hard and they're very rough. And why has that happened? Because he has maybe picked up a lot of rough things, or he must have worked hard a lot with his hands. And over the years, with the hard work that he has done, his hands have become brown, they have become rough, they have become hard. Okay, so this is what the poet is trying to show, that the hands of a person denotes what kind of a work the person has been doing. So this father is a very hardworking person. He then then the poet also shows us that while washing hands, a few droplets of water cling to the graying hair on his wrist. So here we see, while washing hands, not only his hands are brown, but his hair on the hands also are gray. That is, he's become old now. His sullen children have often refused to share. Sullen children means bad tempered. Okay, the children are not at all bothered about their father. They are not at all worried about what the father is going through. They are just so selfish, so bad tempered, and they just don't want to, share their joys and sorrows with their father. And so they have refused to share these, good moments, those precious moments of their life with their father, because they don't feel he is very much important, or he's doing something, for their family. So the children have also moved away from him. So because now all of these things have happened, nobody's interested in talking to him. He just comes out of the toilet and then he goes to sleep. And while he goes to sleep, listening to the static on the radio, dreaming of his ancestors and grandchildren. Okay, so now while he goes to sleep, he just, switches on the radio and listens to the same old thing every day. And while he's listening to the thing, various, maybe songs or news or whatever on the radio, he starts dreaming about his ancestors, like how his ancestors were, how was the family system during that time when, he was maybe the poet's father was small, and then also they had this maybe one person, the father of the family, who would work hard, but at the end of the day when he would come home, all the family members would gather together. They would sit together for dinner, and over the, over the food or over the dinner, they would discuss what all happened in their entire day's span. Okay, so the children would share their experiences, father would share his experiences, the mother would share her experiences, and in that way they would have a very joyful, the very peaceful moment while having their dinner. So such was the system of the family during his ancestors time. And now the father is thinking that how his life has been, and how his grandchildren's life will be. Okay, after the introduction of all these modern things, and how the family system, the entire system in the family has changed completely. So thinking of nomads entering a subcontinent through a narrow pass, so he thinks that he himself also is maybe probably a unknown person who has come into this house, and again tomorrow he has to continue with the same old routine of going to work and then coming back home, and nobody being, nobody noticing him, and the same routine that will follow for a few more years now. Okay, so in this way the poet ends his poem, Father Returning Home. So what moral do we get from this poem, my dear students? That we all, have these elderly people in our house, or maybe even if not the elderly people, but we do have our parents at home, and these parents today are neglected because we all are so, maybe some of you are busy in studies, you might be sitting the whole day for studies or reading some books or something like that, but there are so many of you who are busy either chatting with your mobile, with your friends over the mobile, or seeing some songs, or some movies or some programs or something like that, or playing games and etc. So while doing all of these, we just neglect our parents, the presence of our parents at home. We don't talk to them, we don't converse with them, we don't share with them what are the various things that are going on in our mind, and we consider them just as, outdated. We tell them, no mommy, you don't understand, you're just outdated, you're not of our generation, so you will not understand all of these things. And we feel them as if they are a burden to us. Okay, because whenever they correct us, we don't like those corrections, we don't like them all the time, uh, poking into whatever we are doing. Either they will stop us from, playing games or something like that, or talking to our friends. So they would do all of that, and that becomes, burdensome for some of you. But we must never forget, my dear students, that we have come from our parents, and so we have to respect them. And not only our parents, but every elder around us, every elder person around us, because they have lived a very tough life just because you should get a good life. So we have to treat our parents with love, with care, and because they know, we have to realize the how valuable they are. And we don't realize now when they are present around us, but we realize later when they are not around us. Okay, so that should not happen. When they are here now with us, let us enjoy every moment with them. Okay, when we were children, did our parents leave us? No. Did they get irritated with us? No. So we also now should not get irritated by their interference. Rather, make them understand, talk to them, have conversations with them, okay, and make them a part of your life. So when they become old, we must also not lose them. So this is the moral that the poet is trying to bring out from the poem, my dear students. So I'm sure that I'm sure that you all must be, respecting your fathers, especially who have taken up the responsibility of your entire family. Okay, maybe like, your mother also do the same thing, but father is again like, one of the main member of the family, and we have to realize his hard work. Okay, we have to realize how important role he plays in keeping his family together, in keeping his family happy. Okay, fathers usually don't share what they go through, what are the various hard things that are happening in their life, because they are, they keep this very what do you say, very, smiling face in front of you while he's facing, a lot of problems, but he always portrays himself that he's strong and he's very much happy with his life. So he also might be undergoing a lot of troubles, and we have to understand that as children we have to stand by them, give them all the happiness that they deserve, because our parents, our fathers have made a lot of sacrifices in their lives just so that you could be happy. And even we might, notice these things in our day-to-day lives. So we say a dad is a son's first hero and a daughter's first love. He is someone who always sacrifices his needs for our needs. You would not find any dad who will say, no, I will not give you this pair of shoes because I want to buy a new shirt or something. Never. You will never ever hear a father saying that. He always puts the needs of his family members before his own needs. Okay, so such is the contribution, or such is the sacrifice of a father. So, thank you, my dear students, for listening to this beautiful poem. Please go to your textbook on page number 116 and read the poem, and try to relate to every word that has been written by the poet Dilip Chitre, and how you can relate to these, small moments that also occur in your own life, or maybe in your father's life. So, thank you and have a nice day.